Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and I've got an interesting little bit of news here that I'm going to use more as a bit of a talking point and a way to get some discussion going from you guys, because it comes from a not obvious source, but I also think it's potentially quite impactful and it could give us quite a bit of insight into things that are going on for GTA 6's online mode. So People Make Games, the YouTube channel, they've been covering the union busting attempts by Rockstar when they fired 30-odd employees for supposed and alleged, giving away company secrets in a Discord server and stuff like that. I'm not going to necessarily talk about that in this one. I talked about it a little bit in the previous GTA 6 news episode, but the People Make Games channel has covered that way better than I ever could. So I'm going to link all of their videos of their coverage on that down below, and I highly recommend you watch them because it's some really good coverage of what's going on with that. But the fired employees through the sort of the games union are putting a lawsuit against Rockstar for, wrongful termination, basically. Now, like I said, I'm not going to necessarily discuss it, but when you sort of watch the various bits of evidence that are now getting put up with that, because they had an initial hearing about it, it definitely seems like union busting. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, the little things. Even if, it's going to take a while before we get a judge deciding on that, and even if the law is on Rockstar's side and it wasn't wrongful termination in that way from this lawsuit, I think the court of public opinion might not necessarily agree with that. But in that, because they had sort of an initial trial, various bits of evidence needed to be given from Rockstar and from the employees about why the employees felt that they weren't wrongfully terminated and were wrongfully terminated, and why Rockstar felt that they had to fire these employees immediately without any issues, any recourse or appeal or proper due process or anything like that. So they had to give evidence that suggested that they were sharing company secrets and things like that. Now, there's one part about it, and I'm going to show you the clip from People Make Games' video, that is very specific seemingly to GTA 6, and supposedly it was so sensitive that it couldn't even be read in the courtroom, but the creator of the channel, of the People Make Games channel, he actually went to see the evidence because there's hard copies, and he actually read it and mentioned what it was in the video. And I think it gives some interesting insight into what might be happening with GTA 6 behind the scenes. Now, as a bit of a precursor, GTA 5's online lobbies are limited to 32 players, 30 of which are actual players in the lobby, and 2 slots are reserved for spectators. So theoretically, you could get 32 players in a lobby on GTA 5. It's just that 2 of the spots they've left them for spectators, which is a feature that never ever gets used. But hey ho, we've seen on various 5M servers and certainly a lot of my videos on 5M that you can get a hell of a lot more than 32 players in GTA 5, but the vanilla game at least is limited to 32 players, but realistically, strictly speaking, 30 who are actually in the game playing at the same time. But the evidence that was submitted by Rockstar seems to suggest that maybe 32 players is going to be the limit for GTA 6's online offering too. I'll show you the clip so you can see it for yourself, and then I'll come back and talk a lot more about it because there's a little bit of nuance that we need to talk about, and then we'll have a discussion about it as well.
But as you've already heard, there was also something hidden away in these messages described as being so sensitive by Rockstar's barrister that he didn't wish to read those particular messages aloud in court, and instead asked the judge to read them privately on her own. The words top secret were even used here to describe just how sensitive in nature this stuff actually was. However, as Rockstar had not applied for any reporting restrictions to be placed upon this evidence that was then made available to me in Glasgow, I have now seen what was being referred to here. It begins with one fired employee talking about his experiences with trying to request time off at the studio. Being told they don't want more than 13 people off at one time, we're a team of 56 people, soon to be 60, Then a later message says, until the end of this year, they want no more than 5 people off at a time, apparently. Then presumably in response to a message from another employee, which I've not seen, this union member responds, absolutely no idea. They mentioned the large session we did today being difficult to do, but that was 32 players. Not sure how that was difficult. Later on, another fired union member criticizes this new policy, saying, sounds like you have multiple studios of QA testers. Surely someone can manage to organize a 32 player session and let people have their time off. Those are the messages Rockstar's barrister is referring to when he describes this top secret information being talked about in relation to an unannounced feature from a game currently in development at Rockstar. Messages he didn't wish to even utter aloud. And this is how Rockstar describes the seriousness of them in its own defense. The respondent, that's Rockstar, was also gravely concerned to discover that some of the claimants, that's the union members, had been sharing highly confidential and commercially sensitive information relating to the content and features of an unannounced online service. They discussed the specific number of online players planned for this service, a material feature of this new title, which has not yet been revealed by Rockstar.
So obviously we can't read too much into this because it doesn't necessarily have to just be the lobby limit. It could just be for game modes like a deathmatch or races or something like that that are limited to 32 players. And it might not even be that it's a limit of 32 players entirely. They just wanted to get a session of 32 players, but it does seem like quite an arbitrary number of people to get, especially if you're trying to test things out in a QA, format. So there is a lot of sort of nuance with that, and we don't want to read too much into just assuming that, okay, well, this sentence means that the lobbies in GTA Online are going to be limited to 32 players. But it does raise the question of, will something be limited to 32 players, and how would we feel if it was limited in that way? So for me personally, I mean, that would be a massive disappointment because I was already disappointed that they didn't increase the player limit for lobbies, races, whatever else in GTA Online when the expanded and enhanced editions came out for PS5 and Series X, and then subsequently the enhanced edition for PC. The fact that, we had obviously 16 players in a lobby on Xbox 360 and PS3, then it moved to 30 players, which should have really been 32 just without the spectator spots. I was really hoping that we'd, move that on to 48, for example, or something like that for the enhanced editions of the game, which are meant to be better, but we got nothing like that. So if that 32 player limit ends up sticking through all the way to GTA 6, that would be incredibly disappointing, especially when you consider the map is going to be so much bigger. I am going to do a video about the sort of the more up-to-date map project that we've got at the moment soon, but the map is going to be so much bigger. There's going to be a lot more space for people in a lobby. We've seen from 5M, we've had a G-Fred race with over 300 people in it. And yes, it does get quite difficult to manage that many people. It's chaotic, but certainly in a free roam session when everybody's just, doing their own thing or whatever, or in pockets, especially on a bigger map, certainly 64 players, I think, would be my sort of minimum I think I'd expect to see. Now, I think the thing that I wanted to do with this video is to spark a bit of discussion, and if we're giving our thoughts in this video, maybe it makes its way to Rockstar eventually, and if they're deciding on, if they're trying to push for 32 players internally, and or that's the plan at the moment, and they see a bit of backlash about it, maybe they'll think about increasing the player numbers from that 32. But that quote and the evidence does seem to suggest that something is going to be limited to 32 players. It might just be races, it might be death matches, it might not be the lobby as a whole, it might be 128 players in just free roam lobbies, and then you go into a race and that's limited to 32, much in the same way that it was for the original version of GTA 5, where you could have 16 players in a lobby, but a lot of the races were limited to 8 players. So, like I said, we can't read too much into it, but what I wanted to do with this is to spark a bit of a discussion and get your guys' thoughts in the comments. What would you be happy with? What do you think would be an acceptable player count for just general free roam lobbies in GTA 6, considering the bigger map, considering it's been 13 years since GTA 5? What are you expecting? What would you be disappointed with? What would you be happy with? Is 64 players a good amount and you think that would be fine, you'd be happy with that. If it was 32 players, would you be disappointed? If it was, say, 64 players for a free roam session, but then 32 players for a race or a deathmatch or other game mode, would you be disappointed with that, or would that be okay? Personally, I'd be a little bit disappointed. I really like doing big player count races, but I do understand that, you know, as you scale things up, it does get a lot more difficult to manage. But certainly for free roam, I want at least 64 players in a free roam lobby. Ideally more, if I'm honest. But, you know, what do you guys think? I'd really like to know your thoughts in the comments. That's the main reason I've made this video. Obviously to highlight this, which might have got missed. You know, it comes from a video that's talking about the lawsuit and all that kind of stuff. It's not strictly speaking, you know, any information that's come out about GTA 6, but this has come from Rockstar themselves in a way, and they consider it such sensitive information that it can't be read out in a courtroom, that there's certainly an air of legitimacy to what was said. So my biases would suggest to me that probably I would guess that it was a 32 player limit for a race or some other game mode, and I can't see them limiting a full lobby to 32 players. That would be an incredibly disappointing thing in just a free roam session, to me at least. But let me know your thoughts down below. What would you find disappointing? What would you be happy with for free roam lobbies? And for races, for example, what kind of number would you want? Would you want it to be equal to a free roam lobby for whatever you decide you would be happy with, or a little bit lower? What would you be happy with? What would you be disappointed with? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'd be interested to see what the consensus is on that. So yeah, just a little bit of a news video from an interesting source, and definitely watch People Make Games as videos on the union busting attempts that Rockstar seem to have done. I'll leave a link to all of their videos down below in the description, so you can watch them. They cover this aspect, so you can watch them, and I do recommend you watch them as well because they're very well done. So yeah, that's it from me for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.